Good evening. I am Jerry Smith, St. Charles Parish Public Schools Executive Director of Student Services and your Mistress of Ceremony for the evening. I'm so excited to see those of you who have come out this afternoon. We trust that you have enjoyed the interactive demonstrations in the lobby. It is with sheer pleasure that I welcome you to our first St. Charles Parish Public Schools and St. Charles Parish Hospitals Team Up for Student Health, Wellness, and Vaping Awareness event. It is no secret that healthy children are more likely to attend school, be ready to learn, and stay engaged in class. Unfortunately, vaping rates have soared among our preteens and teens in recent years. As a school system, we feel compelled to be proactive and responsive in providing a forum to foster student health, wellness, and student and parent vaping awareness. Our planning committee of St. Charles Parish Public Schools, St. Charles Parish Hospital, and Oxnard Health System have worked diligently to prepare an event that is educational and beneficial to promoting overall student health with the focus on vaping awareness. This afternoon, I would like our superintendent, Dr. Ken Ortland, to come make some remarks. But as he comes up, I would like to share that Dr. Ken Ortland has been a part of the St. Charles Parish Public School System for 21 years. He began his career in the school system in 2001 as a teacher at Hornville High School. He took the helm as superintendent in 2019. His love and compassion for children and his genuine commitment to impacting the needs of the whole child is most evident in all that he does. Without further ado, please join me in welcoming our esteemed superintendent, Dr. Ken Ortland.
Good afternoon. First of all, Jerry, thank you for that very kind opening remarks, and thank you for planning this event with Oshner and your support of our schools and their efforts to address the ongoing vaping epidemic. And that's what I call it, a vaping epidemic, because that's truly what it is. I'd also like to acknowledge and thank our principals in the audience tonight. If you could just wave, please, principals, because I certainly appreciate your efforts at your schools to not only increase awareness, but to also offer deterrence as well as informational sessions for your students on the impacts that vaping has. Thank you, Mr. Dacus, Keith Dacus with Oshner and St. Charles Parish Hospital for joining our fight, because it's a fight to prevent this epidemic from spreading more than it already has. I know the safety and well-being of our community, especially our youth, is important to you and Oshner. Our motto, as you all know, is you and I, we are St. Charles Parish Public Schools. And certainly your partnership and the partnerships with so many other organizations here tonight is representative of our motto and a reflection of the bonds that we've made as organizations with each other. So thank you for that. Over the past 4 years, we've seen a significant increase in the numbers of students being suspended for vaping with nicotine products, as well as significant increases in the number of students expelled from school for vaping a controlled substance. While applying disciplinary consequences serves as a deterrent, sometimes it doesn't address the fundamental deterrent of educating our students and parents on the implications of vaping. Although not so far back, it's 2016, the country actually had realized a 50-year low of tobacco and nicotine use by teens. Because of vaping, the 20-year trend has been completely reversed. And while I'm no expert, certainly not, I know that youth and their exposure to nicotine can lead to the addiction of other drugs, disruption of attention and learning, result in poisoning of the body, and cause impaired brain development with other long-lasting, long-term impacts. Consider that. And according to drugfree.org, this means that 1 in every 3 high school seniors have tried vaping at least once. This is why we're here. This is why we're thankful for your attendance, for those of you who are able to attend, and to learn a little bit more about the impacts of vaping and what we can do as a community to help our students potentially overcome it, or maybe hopefully act as a deterrent to never even try it. With that said, I'd like to turn it back over to Ms. Jerry Smith. Thank you.
Oxnard Health has been an amazing partner with us in planning this event tonight. Words are inadequate to express our gratitude to Oxnard Health, St. Charles Parish Hospital, and the Oxnard Smoking Cessation team. It is an honor for me to introduce Mr. Keith Dacus. Keith Dacus is the Chief Executive Officer of St. Charles Parish Hospital, a facility managed by Oxnard Health. He is responsible for driving the operational, financial, and strategic performance of the health system in the St. Charles Parish. Dacus has 12 years of healthcare leadership experience across various system hospital administrative positions. Prior to joining Oxnard, most recently he served as CEO of Mercy Go Health Urgent Care in Arkansas, Kansas, Oklahoma, and Missouri. Keith has experience in developing, leading, and operating successful healthcare facilities while driving strategic vision, and has expertise in performance improvement and leading organizations through industry transformation. He earned an undergraduate degree from the University of Mississippi, a Master of Business Administration degree from Webster University, and is a Lean Six Sigma Black Belt, process improvement. Keith is also a member of the American College of Healthcare Executives and the American Medical Group Association. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Dacus.
Thank you all very much. Thank you for coming here tonight. It's a really important event. I want to thank Dr. Ortling and St. Charles Parish Public School System for partnering with us on this important event. You heard the statistics. The numbers are, I'll say, shattering. It's scary. I know there was a youth tobacco study that was done that talked about 25 to 30% of middle school and high school kids had vaped in the last 30 days or would vape in the next 30 days. So to your point of calling it an epidemic, absolutely, it's an epidemic. So that's why this event is so important. So at St. Charles Parish Hospital, one of our core values is putting patients first, and we do that through programs to focus on preventative care and awareness of wellness services. So I hope you had a chance to meet some of our representatives and get some information in the lobby. Some of those programs that we focus in on are the Oxnard's performance training, Eat Fit, and then also our outreach education programs, as well as, of course, smoking cessation. So we have a great program tonight. Travis is going to be talking about some great information. I hope y'all enjoy his presentation. You know, there's an old saying: if you feel good, then if you look good, then you feel good, right? So your health is the same thing. If you start out with good, healthy habits, students, it's shown that you will have advantages in your academic career. So please listen in tonight. Take the time. Parents, thank you for coming this evening. I hope we give you some tools and tips that will help you prepare for these healthy habits to start our kids out on the right foot and set them up for a bright future. So I just want to say thank you from Oxnard, thank you from St. Charles Parish Hospital. Please consider us a resource. If you have any questions or any healthcare needs, we're here for you. Thank you very much.
Next on our program, we have Dr. Nicole Jones, who is a pediatrician in our area, and she will speak briefly on general pediatric wellness in her practice. Dr. Nicole A.D. Jones is a board-certified pediatrician with 20 years of experience and has been servicing the river parishes for the past 17 years. She is currently practicing at Children's Hospital Rainbow Pediatrics in LaPlace, Louisiana. After receiving her medical degree from Howard University College of Medicine in Washington, D.C., Dr. Jones completed her residency at Jacobi Medical Center, Albert Einstein College of Medicine in New York. She holds certifications with the American Board of Pediatrics and the National Board of Physicians and Surgeons. Dr. Jones was recognized by her peers, receiving the Children's Hospital New Orleans Provider Award in 2021 and the recognition as a City Business 2022 Healthcare Hero. She enjoys all aspects of pediatric medicine, including preventative care, treating childhood illnesses, and developmental issues. Dr. Jones spends her free time with her family, mentoring students, and serving her community. She has been a responsive parent and partner to St. Charles Parish Public Schools by lending her medical knowledge and expertise and serving on various stakeholder committees. We're so happy to have Dr. Jones with us this evening.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dr. Nicole Jones. I'm with Rainbow Pediatrics in Laplace, Louisiana. More importantly, I am part of this community, so it's an honor for me to be here. I do know the drive and determination the St. Charles Parish School Board and also the community has put forth in their children and in the community in terms of looking out for the best interests of our youth. I also am honored to be on the same stage with Ochsner and St. Charles Parish Hospital. They've been a staple in this community for many years, and also too that they have been, you know, an excellent partner for St. Charles Parish. So thank you for having me. So this is the first event we're having talking about students' health, wellness, and also we're going to focus on vaping. As a pediatrician, my job is to pretty much make sure that your children are being evaluated as they are from birth actually up to age 21. Okay, most pediatricians, we see little ones as soon as they're born, and then we transition them to an adult doctor at age 21. However, in our practice, we realize that a lot of our teenagers and middle schoolers think they only come to the doctor after the first 2 years of their lives. They only come when they're sick, when they have a bobo, when they need something sutured or something addressed. I'm here to tell you that your pediatrician is here as an advocate for your family. We're also here to monitor your child's growth and development. And like any child, there are different stages in a child's development that's really important. So most importantly, your child is going to come to see a pediatrician starting from birth. Then there are many visits in there where they're going to come every 2, 3, 4 months to see the doctor, right up onto the age of 2 years. What we really need to focus on as well is getting our younger, early elementary kids in to see the doctor for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, and 5-year visits. That really helps us kind of like keep our eyes on how your child is developing. Right now, we're experiencing a lot of illnesses with the flu and RSV as well too that's going on. We're here to tell you that, you know, as your child is sick and experiencing different symptoms, of course come to see us. But when your child turns 2, they have to come to us as well too. We're really focusing on their early child development, making sure that there aren't any concerns, how they're interacting, especially when they're starting their preschool years as well. Most kids, whether they come as a 3-year-old, we're checking their vision. We're making sure that they are socializing well, they're adapting well, they're developing well. We have a really good Head Start program in this parish that actually can help us work with your pediatrician, identifying those kids who are at risk. Obviously, some of my kids are dreading the 4-year-old visits, so that when they come in at a 4-year-old visit, we are going to be making sure, once again, they have their immunizations if your family does choose to immunize. We're also making sure that we're checking their vision, once again, their hearing. We're screening for any type of, you know, anemias or any type of lead screenings we would do. But the focus of the pediatrician from ages, more than likely ages 4 onward to age 6 and 7, is that we're making sure that your child is being well adjusted, they're healthy, they're making sure that they are pretty much interacting well in their school settings. Sometimes we have parents come in who are going to let us become aware that as a child is going to school, there's some issues that are coming up, whether they're with their learning, whether with their attention, or even if they're not socializing the best way that we as parents feel that they should. Those are discussions that you would have with your doctor, asking us what is the best way that we can maneuver and help that child so that child can flourish in a school setting. Most of my older children pretty much forget about coming to see me when they're after the age of 6 or 8, because they're like, Dr. Jones, we don't need to see you anymore. But I'm trying to remind them that as you get older, yeah, I'm still here. We're here for you. We're here pretty much the cheerleaders in the background, not just asking mom and dad how you're doing. We want to make sure that you guys are thriving well. We want to make sure that you are socializing with your peer group. For those, some kids don't adjust well when they start middle school. My one example, I try to tell my kids who come to my practice, I have 2 children. I have a son and a daughter. Both are absolutely different. My son is my introvert at one point in time. My daughter is my social butterfly. You know, from those kids out there who are always in band, in theater, in choir, and you know, for those parents who are always on the go, getting those kids to all those activities, we still want that child to come in so we can talk to that child as well about, okay, are we making good decisions with our peer groups? Are we making sure that we're interacting well? Are we trying to be a leader? Are we trying to be a follower? Also, at those age ranges in middle school, we realize that some kids are having a tough time finding out who they are, finding out what they want to, do, or how best to approach large groups or talking in large crowds like this. We're getting a lot of calls, especially with post-pandemic, with children and parents concerned about our kids being overly anxious now, especially with everything that we just went through the past 2 years. We're getting calls about little ones being bullied in school. So our job as a pediatrician is to, besides taking care of the health and the well-being of your child, we're also making sure that we're trying to address your child's mental well-being. When our young ones start middle school as well, we're starting introducing them to a lot of organized sporting activities and sporting events. Your pediatrician is going to be there in the background, making sure that we're not putting our kids at any overuse risk injuries. A lot of our kids are playing multi-sports, whether that is baseball, whether that is football, and their athletic abilities are being tested and on a regular basis. So it's important that not only that we address the early childhood needs of your children, but also we address our middle school needs as well, because each phase of a child's development, there are different needs that have to be addressed. And as parents and as teachers and as me, the pediatrician, and your healthcare provider, we are there as well to lend those helping hands. However, we also have to be aware that our kids are younger and younger, being exposed to different venues of social media and everything else too. They're exposed to different, for example, TikTok and Instagram and your YouTube and everything else that's out there. So our kids are open to being influenced, even though that we may have those parental guidelines on our devices, whether that's your phone, whether that's your iPad and everything else too. So talking and having those discussions are important with your child, but sometimes if we have children that are pretty much being overexposed to influences that can harm them and make them make the wrong decisions and all that too, coming and talking to your pediatrician or your healthcare provider about how do we have a conversation. If your child is anything like my children, when I start lecturing, they tune me out. So my best approach with them has always been, let's have a conversation. Let's ask a question. Let's figure out what's going on. For my students who are here, that's the worst thing you can ever hear when you get in the car and your mom asks or your dad asks, how's your day? And we get back that one-word answer, fine. one thing that has worked well with mine, they have pretty much understood that when we get in the car, we're gonna have a conversation that on the way home. If we have a 5-minute discussion about how was your day, and I get a little bit more than it was fine, then they know what's coming next. It's okay, you know, how was your day? Where were you? What happened? If you answer at least 3 or 4 more sentences besides I'm fine, then I'm a little comforted that, oh, maybe your day was okay. For my son, who was my introvert, I remember many days having conversations with him, and he would come in and tell me everything that was going wrong at school. And I would back it up and say, okay, let's focus on something positive first. Give me 5 things of your school day or your work day that was positive, or your after-school activity, and then you can tell me what didn't work out well, what are you frustrated about. Having open conversations and having those dialogues kind of let your kids be able to come to you and also go to other people they identify that they're comfortable with just talking to help them maneuver pretty much their school life. Because believe it or not, I always tell the ones who come to my clinic, ages 5th grade to 8th grade are tough grades. You know, your kids are going through a lot of emotions, they're going through a lot of development, they're going through a lot of growth. It's whether Susie likes me today or doesn't like me today, whether I'm picked at recess to play, you know, dodgeball or football or what I wasn't, whether or not the whole class got in trouble or did I get in trouble. They're maneuvering a lot of stressful times. They're maneuvering through a lot of stressful days. There's homework to be done. There's work that has to be taught at a pace for them to understand. We want to make sure that your children and through your teachers' helps and all too, especially the different resources that the schools have in place, that they're there, they understand what's available. We understand that not everyone's going to have 10 or 6 friends, not everyone's going to be the most popular of the group, but when you look at yourself, understand that what I tell my children, so when they look at themselves, understand that they have their self-worth. You're an individual, you're part of a community. Things happen if you're a part of a community, but the bottom line is understanding that you can still persevere, you can still make that A, you can still study, you can still achieve what you want to achieve. Every child also may not respond well to what I would say large groups. Some kids may need some more individualized attention, but that's why we have amazing teachers in the St. Charles Parish that can help. I have never had a child who's gone through the school system ever said that there was not help available. For my little ones who are a little shy, little ones who are not as boisterous or vocal in the classroom, I always let them know if you're struggling at school, if you're struggling with you know, your friends and all that, if you don't let one person know, how are we, you know, no one knows they can help you. Your parents may know that something is going on. Your parents may know that you're just, you know, you're not as outgoing, you're a little sad by an event, and that's when we parents and some teachers are amazing teachers too, will pretty much kind of pull you aside and say, okay, what's wrong? So as we talk about health, as we talk about, you know, being, you know, pretty much a advocate for student health and all that, we have to also think about not only a child's health in terms of physical health, we also have to think about in terms of a child's mental health. We also have to think about a child's ability to be able to form really good social groups as well. As we move on to high school is another interesting course to maneuver. We find that freshman development, well, I'm sorry, as a freshman going into high school, coming out as a senior, there's a interesting transition and a maturity and a growth and development that a child, adolescent is going to have. However, they're still faced with, you know, health concerns, they're still faced with social group issues, they're still faced with peer pressure, they're still faced with making appropriate decisions as to whether or not, as this program's about vaping, whether or not to do expose yourselves to the harms of vaping. On the health aspect, for a high schooler who comes into our clinic from the ages of 14 to 18, yes, we're seeing them as usual once a year to address their health, to do their sports physicals, to make sure that your multi-sport athlete is not getting overuse injuries and everything else too, but also we're trying to address their concerns as they develop and become young adults. A teenager is still, as I said, I tell my child, I know you think you're an adult, I will call you maybe adultish, but you still have a lot of growing up to do. Today's topic hits home though, because I didn't want to get up here and start throwing out a lot of data and a lot of information, because that's going to be followed by Mr. Travis over there with Oshner, who has an excellent presentation. But I thought more so we talk about a little bit of, making sure from early childhood to adolescence, we know that your child's going to come in for their well visits and their health visits and any other mental health concerns or social concerns they may have. But I thought I would share with you the experiences in the 17 years I've been here in this parish, and also within the last 4 or 5 years in regards to vaping and my experience with those young individuals who've come to my office with vaping concerns and also with health-related issues because of their exposure to vaping. Most young individuals vape because of a couple reasons. When I ask my patients, why are you vaping? Why did this happen? It doesn't matter which background they come from. It doesn't matter if they're from a single parent environment or both parents are at home. Half of the response I've gotten from my teenagers have been curiosity, Dr. Jones. It's the uncool, cool thing to do. TikTok, social media, there are videos out there that shows you what you can do with the vape as you exhale. There's also the fact that it's appealing. The people who have developed this product and the companies that have developed this product have targeted this initially as the next cool thing to do. What we need to realize and understand that a couple years ago, when you turned on the TV, on mainstream TV, there were a lot of information and a lot of cool commercials about vaping. Now that when we turn on the TV, we don't see those commercials in mainstream. But however, those commercials are still being targeted to our children through different social media. Whether that is TikTok, whether that's Instagram, you may notice that certain platforms or Facebook or Twitter, there is also a commercial or an ad or advertisement that comes up through when you are on those platforms. What is sad about this is that we're finding younger and younger kids who are vaping. Unfortunately, middle schoolers are being exposed to it. We have our high schoolers who also are exposed to it as well too. A lot of my young high schoolers are telling me, Dr. Jones, we're not going to the bathroom anymore. I'm like, why? Do you need a bathroom letter? They're like, no, people are vaping in the bathrooms. I don't want to be part of that crowd. I know the school district and the schools here have done an amazing job with putting different smoke detectors or detectors in the bathrooms. I know that you guys, the principals and the staff, have policed the different bathrooms as well too. But the apparatus that the kids are bringing into the schools or that they're buying off of Amazon and will be, if you have Prime, or delivered next day or within 2 days, or you can actually single out when that product can be delivered to the household if your parents are not home. So many parents are surprised by the fact that my child was caught vaping at school, or Dr. Jones, I'm calling you because I found a vape in my child's backpack. When I first actually started looking into this a couple years ago, I was assuming that an e-cigarette was this long cigarette, but right now technology is so amazing that a lot of our vaping apparatuses they look like flash drives. You know, some kids are even buying apparel that can hide the vape on them. So our job, or my job here, is not to say, okay, lecture you and say, do this, do that, don't do this. I would love to do that, but with most kids, I realize that having a conversation, having an open dialogue, having a sitting your child down or your children and their group of friends and say, you know, what's happening, what's going on with your peer group? Are you making the right choices amongst your peer group? Most young ones start vaping because it was offered to them as a curiosity. They feel the pressure if they say no to their friend or they say no to that that group they're with, that they're not going to be considered cool anymore. One thing I used to tell my kids is that, you know, it's okay to be uncool. Sometimes being uncool is the coolest thing. Before I end, I would also share that vaping impacts so many aspects of a young child's mind. Even though we are adolescents, even though we're teenagers, and even think your brain is developed and all that too, your brain is still developing. We don't know a lot of the chemicals that are put into these vapes, especially those vapes that are bought off the black market, because actually there is a vaping black market. There are chemicals in there as that liquid is heated up and you're inhaling that. It's harmful not only to your brain, it's also harmful to your lungs. It's harmful to your many organ systems in your body. The final thing I want to say too that hits home, I had when Ms. Jerry asked me to come out and talk about this, I'm like, okay, I'll come and talk about, you know, thank you for having me talk about health and everything else too, is that our young individuals are out there who are exposed to vaping. Sometimes that one puff, that one vape can lead to lifelong consequences, not just being caught with it, but also can affect your lungs. It can also mean that you may not come back from an episode of vaping. So hopefully this event is an eye-opener for everyone who is here. It's an amazing program that's coming up next, and I hope you guys really start having or be open to just having a dialogue, not a lecture, but just a dialogue. Thank you for having me.
So like me, I know that you thank Dr. Jones for her remarks this evening. Our keynote presenter tonight is Travis Costanza. Travis is a lifelong educator who saw a need to help address the vaping epidemic with our youth. He came to Oxnard as a community outreach coordinator, and prior to COVID-19 lockdown, he spoke to over 10,000 students around the metro New Orleans area about vaping. He has also worked as a certified tobacco treatment specialist in the Baton Rouge region. He diligently worked with patients, helping them with their tobacco addictions, and quickly exceeded clinic expectations. Travis shared a vision with his director, Lindsay White, and wrote a vaping deterrent program that is being implemented in our schools today. This is a one-of-a-kind program that he works directly with our students, educating them on the dangers of vaping. He has most recently facilitated module-based vaping awareness sessions for our St. Charles Parish Public School students. Tonight, we're pleased to welcome Travis Costanza.
How y'all doing today? Thank you for having me. Thank you, Ms. Jerry, for that introduction. I am a tobacco cessation specialist. I do work for Oshner Health, as we all know. One thing that we will learn today is the things that you guys need to know as parents, what to look for in your children. There's a lot of unknowns, and there is some knowns about vaping, but what we're going to do is we're going to get into the nitty-gritty and give you some information. That way, when you leave out of here, you'll at least know what your body is going to, what could happen to your body, let's say. So how many of you have ever seen any of these? Show of hands. So when Dr. Jones was up here, she said, oh, she was thinking about this big, long, giant device. One of the things that we know is that these things were created with the kid at heart. They wanted to target children by putting it into their hands to make it look like a device that replicates the computer devices that they use daily. E-cigs are devices that produce aerosols. We know aerosols are all around us. They come from hairsprays, they come from body sprays, colognes, room fresheners, anything that you can imagine that when you spray it turns into a white cloud or a powder. Unfortunately, a lot of these chemicals that are inside are not intended to be inhaled, and that's what makes them dangerous. We'll get into that in a little bit. One thing, depending on where we go, as I said, I've spoken to over 10,000 students around the metro area. These things have a different name depending on where I go. Some kids call them carts, e-cigs, elf bars, which is the popular choice here in St. Charles Parish of most of your students. Mods, sticks, yaks, leaves, Juuls. You may have heard of a Juul. Juul was the first one to make it mainstream. They're the ones that blew up the vaping industry and targeted children with bright colors and tasty flavors. One thing we do know is that e-cigs are being used, as I think Dr. Jones said, about bootleg or on the black market for marijuana and other drugs. One thing we know is that prior to COVID, there was between 8 and 11 deaths directly linked to vaping synthetic nicotine. Unfortunately, the bad thing about it is we're not sure what chemicals they're considering it THC, because a lot of them are lab made. If you are vaping, it is the same thing as smoking. It is considered a tobacco product. So the CDC defines vaping as the act of inhaling and exhaling those aerosols produced by e-cigs or a similar device. Unfortunately, the vapor consists of fine particles, which are usually toxic to the lung tissue. Chemicals are being used in a manner which are not intended. That's what makes them dangerous. Now, you will see a lot of artificial flavorings that are in a vape juice that are very similar to the foods that we eat. Unfortunately, it just takes an elementary mindset to know that chemicals don't belong into our lungs, and our stomachs have acids to break down those chemicals. When I go speak to younger audiences, the first thing they say is, well, food doesn't go into your lungs, and they're right. Little kids are able to link that connection, but here as a society, what have we said? Oh, these things are safe because it's food. So if you've ever seen a bottle of vape juice or e-liquid, it looks like this right here. In the beginning, most people were told that vape juices were water and nicotine. How many of you remember that when they first came out? Show of hands if you remember that. That was the big push by the tobacco industry. Said, oh, it's just water, it's just nicotine. Well, unfortunately, it's not. And one of the things that we do know is when you go to any vape liquids manufacturing website or pull an ingredients list, you can look on the back of a bottle. They'll tell us that distilled water's in there. Everybody knows distilled water. They'll tell us that propylene glycol is inside of it. We know propylene glycol is the chemical that makes fog for special effects. We also know that vegetable glycerin is another chemical inside of vape juices. Vegetable glycerin is a chemical that's used in almost every food that we eat. It's a preservative. And then, of course, nicotine concentrate. Now, the thing about the nicotine concentrate is there's two types of nicotine. One is known as freebase, which means it's extracted from tobacco plants, leaves, stems, flowers, anything that grows from a tobacco plant. Unfortunately, though, freebase nicotine does not hit into the brain or the uptake in the brain like it does if you burn it. So freebase nicotine is more like a weaker version of nicotine. The synthetic nicotine that they've been creating is known as a nicotine salt. Everybody thinks of table salt when they hear salt, but it's something to do with the structure. We do know that the nicotine concentrate that is the salt base has almost the same uptake as regular traditional burned cigarette tobacco. That's the scary part about it, is they've figured a way to engineer lab-made nicotine to replicate smoking a cigarette. Unfortunately, there's artificial flavorings, tons of them. We'll get into that in a little bit, and their chemical makeup and what they do in a vape juice. There's about 15,000 e-liquids out there. People are mixing and matching different flavors. One thing that we do know, when we put them onto a spectrum analyzing machine, There's about 60 chemicals that show up. The first one that we always see is acetaldehyde, which is used to manufacture dyes and acetic acid and perfumes. Unfortunately, definitely doesn't belong in your lungs. The next one that we know is acetone. You guys know it as nail polish remover. Yes, acetone, the same stuff that's taking paint off your nails, is found in vape liquids. We also know benzene. Benzene is that chemical that is produced, in the production of gasoline. It's also used in pesticides. And then, of course, formaldehyde is used to preserve dead bodies. We find a lot of aldehydes in the vape liquids. Now, the thing about it is when we take these chemicals and we heat them at different temperatures, the chemicals respond and make different compounds depending on the temperature that they set the vape at. So there's some common flavors that the tobacco industry has spent billions of dollars researching to make sure that they can make a vape more like a cigarette. And so they've come up with the 5 ingredients or the 5 flavors that you see up here that are in every vape juice that's artificially flavored. The first one is menthol. Menthol is used to cool the back of the throat. Now put menthol up in the middle because it's kind of like the one that's in everything, and we need to draw attention to it. And we'll separate it with butter and, of course, vanilla. But menthol, when we inhale it, it cools the throat and it opens up the airways and it dilates our alveoli, which are the deep lung tissues, and that's what gets the nicotine down deep into our lungs. The other chemicals that we know are in every vape juice is butter, and it's usually paired with vanilla. The same artificial butter that is found in microwave popcorn or artificial butter extract, and of course vanilla, which is the same thing as artificial vanilla extract. So the same extracts that we are putting into our foods, they're using them to mask the nastiness of the synthetic nicotine. The synthetic nicotine, when you take a hit off of a vape, it'll tingle the back taste buds on the back corners of your tongue, and they figured out that if they put those two in it, it'll mask it so that your body doesn't realize how bad it tastes. And then, of course, most of them have like a bite or a little peppery flavor. They use cinnamaldehyde, which is a chemical found in cinnamon candies. So if you like Fireball candies, spicy Mike and Ike's, Red Hots, hot tamales, that is added to replicate the zinginess of a cigar or a cigarette. And then, of course, most of the time, these things smell pretty good. It's the attraction to kids. It's what people have been using as their main source of information and saying that it's safe because it smells good. Go figure. Unfortunately, dimethyltryptamine is in a vape juice, and it has a sweet aroma, and it tricks the brain into thinking that it's strawberries, blueberries, raspberries, anything like that. There's a lot of unknown chemicals in vape juices. Unfortunately, we don't know everything about it. Why? Because there's no standardization to it. We do know that liquid flavorings can produce unknown chemicals when you heat them up and modify them. When we mix them with propylene glycol and vegetable glycerin, they make new compounds. Just because something is safe to eat does not mean that it's safe to breathe. We found, as Dr. Jones said, that if we have someone that is vaping, they usually will link this to asthma, a chronic cough, or inflammation of the respiratory system, anywhere from sinus infections down to lung tissues. So, why are kids the target population? First of all, let's take a little trip back in history. Let's take a step down through memory lane where we could look at why middle school and high school students are their target. E-cigarettes are the new version of yesterday's cigarettes. When we look at the big tobacco producers here in the U.S. and the market, we know that Brown and Williamson, which is Kool, Kool says that their stake in the 16 to 25-year-old population segment is such that the value of this audience should be accurately weighed and reflected in current media programs. All magazines will be reviewed to see how efficiently they reach this group. How much more do we need to say? In fact, these quotes came from the '98 tobacco lawsuit that pretty much broke up the tobacco industry's monopoly of them being okay. Larilliard Tobacco, the base of our business is the high school student. Again, it doesn't get any more obvious than that. Philip Morris, you guys may know him as Marlboro or Altria or Juul. all the same company. Philip Morris says today's teenagers, tomorrow's potential regular customer, and the overwhelming majority of smokers first begin to smoke while still in their teens. The smoking patterns of teenagers are particularly important to Philip Morris. Of course they are. If we get you to vape before you're 18, if we get you to smoke before you're 18, you're about 70% likely to become a smoker for the next 25 years. Not a vapor, a smoker. And then, of course, U.S. tobacco. This is what got me hooked when I was in high school, because Cherry Skoal tasted like Luden's cough drops back in the 90s. And their slogan was, well, Cherry Skoal's for somebody who likes the taste of candy, if you know what I'm saying. Who doesn't like candy? What kid doesn't like candy? It's there in black and white. They used their own words against them, and it cost them a lot of money through the 1998 tobacco lawsuit. We do know that e-cigs are the #1 tobacco product of choice amongst teens since they became mainstream about 2014. And then big tobacco, we know, has targeted kids for years. It's their goal. Unfortunately, one thing we do know, I heard some comments about vaping and being around us. What did we do when we were in lockdown in 2020? We stayed at home and watched what? How many of you have a Netflix account? Yeah, we Netflixed, right? Did you know that 80% of all Netflix shows have tobacco depiction? Subliminal messages, guys. They're just sticking it into our heads as we're eating it up and paying for the services. So this is what to look for in your children. A lot of kids act differently, but some of the things that we do know that we see pretty regularly amongst kids is, do they look suspicious? Your kids will be hiding things in their sweatshirt, a hoodie. Often students will try to vape in class by placing a hand over their mouth or in their jacket, or they'll do something like this, and they'll do that. Another thing that they'll do is what they call is zeroing it out, which means they take a big giant inhale, and then they let their lungs absorb it, and they don't exhale it. So all of that stuff that they took in stays there and settles. Do your kids have a headache? Do they talk about frequently having headaches? Unfortunately, students are suffering from nicotine withdrawals. They will complain about a headache, and they'll try to get away from you to take a hit. Or sometimes they'll have too much nicotine, and they call it nick sick. Another thing that we see in kids is that they are getting sweaty. Sometimes when they get nick sick, they'll get sweaty. Sometimes we don't have enough, they'll get sweaty. It's one of those weird things that it's doing to the adolescent brain and the adolescent body, which is trying to figure out life in general. And then when you add nicotine to it, it really doesn't know what to do. So do your kids seem sad or just kind of nothing in general, just kind of blah? Do they seem agitated or anxious, tired or groggy, not able to concentrate on or focus on mundane day-to-day tasks? Do they have a chronic cough? Chronic cough is a telltale. Stomach virus symptom-like symptoms show up in a lot of kids as well, that a lot of Ochsner doctors will call and say, hey, what did we know about stomach irritation or GI issues? Dr. Jones and I were talking about that before. It's one of those things that she hasn't seen much. In the Baton Rouge area and the New Orleans area, we get a lot of consults where they ask, hey, what's going on with this? So it could be some of the chemicals that are inside of them. Any of these symptoms can be an alarm that your child is having nicotine withdrawals. If they seem off, it's probably because they have something going on. Pay attention. Be in their lives. Be mindful. Be aware of what's going on. So where do they use them? Pretty much anywhere. I've seen about 50 kids here in St. Charles Parish since we started the school year. Almost every single one of them say they go up in their room and they vape in their room, and their mom and dads don't come check on them. Most of them, that's where they're doing it. Unfortunately, we know anywhere without supervision, a kid's going to try to vape. We also know that they do it in assemblies, bathrooms, classrooms, gyms, hallways, parties, recess areas, school buses, and of course, like I said, their bedroom. Bedrooms seem to be the big place where kids are going. Think about it. Teenage kids go inside their bedroom, shut the door. What's going on? How many of us actually go up and knock on the door? Hey, what's going on up there? Oh, they're up there doing their thing. Yeah, they're probably vaping if they're interested in it. So where do they get them from? Depending on how crafty your kid is. I'm just going to be straight up honest. Some of them are getting them online. There's websites that all you have to do is type in the website. It pops up a little banner that says, hey, are you 21? Well, you bet I am. Enter the site, and before you know it, they can order vapes offline. There's no verification. Anyone under the age of 21 can purchase it without them saying, hey, give us an ID, give us some information, a birthday. All they need is a prepaid Visa card or a debit card. Some kids tell me that they put in special instructions, do not deliver after 5. Deliver only between 2:30 and 5:30. Gee, I wonder why. They've gotten pretty crafty, guys, just so you know. A lot of kids are buying them in person. A lot of them will get it from their friends. One of the things that I do have to say I am a little bit happy about for the kids that I have talked to, they're at least smart enough to not buy one that's open. Unfortunately, they get them from friends or underage people. They get them from the black market. They have what's known as a plug. Plugs are just a new name for, oh, that's my source. Siblings. You would be amazed how many siblings and cousins buy their little brother or sister or their little cousin a vape. Unfortunately, we do have parents who think vaping is safer than smoking, and they go ahead and buy it for their kids. Would you buy your kids a 12-pack of beer? Then why the hell would you buy them a vape? Let's be real here, okay? And then, of course, here in St. Charles Parish, we have a problem with stores that do not ask for an ID. Here in the parish, I know the stores. Unfortunately, if you can throw your dollar up on the counter, they're going to throw you back a vape. It's that bad. So I do have a couple of special thanks through the whole last semester so far. First of all, the Ewell Landry staff and faculty have been great to us. Special shout out to Miss Ingrid Brass. Miss Brass, you there? Raise your hand, please. She's the principal of Landry. And of course, Mr. Landash, Brad Landash, he is the administrative monitor. These guys welcomed me with open arms. It was amazing. We went and met a few times with Miss Jerry, and it was great. I do want to thank Dr. Ken Ortling because we met at an event. I sent him an email out of the blue. I'm thinking he's never going to respond. Boom. Little did we know that he was going to respond, and little did he know that Ochsner had a program to help with teen vaping. So I do want to give him a shout out and thank him because this is an epidemic amongst our kids, and we are looking for ways to stop it. We were looking for a school system that would welcome us and say, hey, let's try this program and see if it works. And so far to date, I've had kids that don't even go to Landry for other issues saying, hey, can I go speak to the vaping guy? I didn't get busted, but I vape. And so I'm seeing them too. So apparently something we're doing is working. It's all about talking to your student in the right manner. They want to be heard. They don't want to be talked to. The way they talk to us is different than the way we talk to our parents. If you don't like it, you might want to find out a book or something to help you deal with your kids' generational changes. Because kids are different than us. Unfortunately, the way they talk to us, they don't think it's disrespectful. They just want to get their point across. They want to be heard. That's where we are as a society. If we want to stop this, we have to listen to the kids and what they have to say. Why are they vaping? What is stressing them out to make them think that they need a hit of vape? So if you are interested in quitting smoking, if we have any smokers or vapors out there that are 18 or older, Ochsner does have 2 smoking cessation clinics here in St. Charles Parish. One is in Destrehan. The other one is Luling. We do have a homegrown counselor. Her name is Kia DeBose. Did Kia make it? She didn't make it? No? Okay. She was going to try to make it if she could get here just to kind of put a face with her name. But she's here to help you quit. If you're interested, you can call one of our scheduling coordinators at 1-844-371-5806. The services are free. Or you can visit ochsner.org/smoking cessation. In conclusion, now these data numbers are a little bit dated because we have to take into consideration what happened between 2020 and 2021. There were anomaly years. Of course, kids weren't around their peers. They were with their parents more, so the numbers were a little bit skewed. But in 2019, in the state of Louisiana, we're looking at 32% of high schoolers and 15% of middle schoolers that have used. Not if, not maybe, they have. That's what the survey states. Unfortunately, we know that the usage tripled amongst middle school students from about 3.3% to 10.5%, and that's according to the 2019 Youth National Tobacco Survey. Of course, like I said, those numbers are a little dated. There is a new survey coming out next year, and we should have probably, I would say, elevated numbers because kids are back to normal. We're back to the new norm. Any questions? No questions? Okay, so if you have any questions or think of any, you can email me at travis.costanza@oxnard.org, and I'll be glad to get you any information or resources that you may need. Thank you.
So let's thank Mr. Costanza one more time.